When my daughter told me she was evicting me from my own home with the million she'd just inherited, I collapsed right there on our family porch. Days later, I was sleeping in my car outside the house I'd spent 30 years paying for. That's when I realized life doesn't just give you lemons. Sometimes it takes your whole orchard and sells it to the highest bidder. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a courthouse pretzel, and you'll want to be here when justice finally gets served. My name is Robert Gallo. For most of my life, I was just an ordinary man with simple dreams. I worked at the same insurance company for 35 years, paid my taxes on time, and dedicated my life to raising my daughter, Maria Clara, after my wife Helena passed away from cancer when our girl was only 7. Everything I did was for Maria. Every extra shift, every missed vacation, every penny saved. I wanted her to have the opportunities one never had. When she got accepted to Princeton with honors, I felt like the proudest father alive. All those years of sacrifice had paid off. My little girl was going to make something of herself. I never imagined she would make herself into someone I wouldn't recognize. The trouble began 3 months ago when my father passed away at 89. Dad and I had a complicated relationship. He was always distant, critical of my career choices, disappointed I hadn't become the business tycoon he'd hoped for. We maintained a cordial relationship, but there was always this unspoken tension between us. What I didn't know was that my father had amassed quite a fortune over the years, nearly $15 million in assets, properties, and investments. Money he never spoke about, never shared, never even hinted at. And in his final act of parental judgment, he bypassed me entirely in his will. Every cent, every property, every stock went directly to my daughter. His only grandchild. My only child. She has the ambition you lack, the lawyer read from my father's letter. Maybe she'll do something worthwhile with it. Even from the grave, Dad found a way to twist the knife. But the real shock wasn't my father's decision, it was what Maria did next. Script part separator, I returned home from the reading of the will feeling numb. Maria had said little at the attorney's office, just kept staring at the papers in front of her, her expression unreadable. I figured we'd talk about it over dinner, make some plans. Maybe set up a trust, invest wisely. I never expected to see a moving truck in our driveway. What's going on? I asked as I approached my front door. 2 men in uniforms were carrying out my recliner, the one Helena and I had bought when we first got married. Maria stood in the doorway, clipboard in hand, hair pulled back in a severe bun I'd never seen before. She looked like a stranger. Dad, I was hoping to do this when you weren't here. Her voice was cool, detached. I'm renovating the house. Starting fresh. Renovating. But we didn't discuss. The house is mine now. She cut me off. I've been thinking about what to do with the inheritance, and I've decided to make some changes. I laughed nervously. Honey, I know it's technically yours, but this is our home. We should talk about any major decisions together. That's when she handed me an envelope. Inside was a formal eviction notice. Fertidei stovacate de premises. Iuquent becírios, e vispered, the paper trembling in my hands. I'm perfectly serious. I've already spoken with grandfather's attorney. Everything is legal. She checked something off on her clipboard. I've arranged for a small apartment for you across town. The first 3 months' rent is covered. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Maria, this is our home. We've lived here since you were born. Your mother's garden is out back. Your height marks are on the kitchen door frame. For just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Doubt, maybe even guilt. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Dad, I need to establish my independence. This house represents a new beginning for me. I've already made arrangements with an interior designer and contractors. But where am I supposed to go? Everything is here. She sighed as if I were being deliberately difficult. Your things are being packed. Whatever doesn't fit in the apartment will go to storage. I'm not being unreasonable. I'm giving you a month's notice and arranging alternative housing. Alternative housing. Like I was some tenant she was displacing, not her father who had raised her single-handedly for 20 years. Script part separator, Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice breaking. What have I done to deserve this? She looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed calculating and cold, so unlike the warm brown eyes that had gazed up at me with love for 2 decades. I've been talking with my financial advisors. This property has significant value, especially after renovation. It's an investment decision. An investment decision? This is our home, Maria. The home where I taught you to ride a bike in the driveway. Where we had Christmas mornings and birthday parties. Where I held you when your first boyfriend broke your heart. That's all sentimentality, Dad. The advisor's grandfather connected me with before he died said I need to start thinking pragmatically about wealth management. The words hit me like slaps. Advisors? Grandfather? Since when did she call my father grandfather instead of grandpa? You've been talking to Dad's people? For how long? She straightened her already perfect posture. For about a year. He wanted to prepare me. A year. While I was driving her to the airport for college breaks, while I was mailing care packages and calling every Sunday, she'd been having secret meetings with my father's financial team. Maria, please. This is cruel. I'm your father. For the first time, her facade cracked slightly. Dad, this isn't personal. It's about creating the future grandfather believed I could have. He said you were too sentimental, too stuck in the past. He said you'd hold me back. The betrayal was now complete. My father had poisoned my daughter against me from beyond the grave. I felt my legs giving way and stumbled to sit on the porch steps. The movers worked around me, carrying out lamps, books, photo albums, our entire life together being boxed up and loaded away. And Maria just stood there, watching it all with the detached interest of someone observing a minor inconvenience. Who are you? I finally asked. Because you're not the daughter I raised. She flinched, but recovered quickly. I'm exactly who you raised me to be, Dad. Ambitious. Independent. Forward-thinking. But I never taught you to be cruel. Script part separator ===. Her expression hardened. Cruel would be letting you continue to live in financial ignorance. Grandfather said you never understood the value of money. That's why you stayed in that dead-end job for decades. Each word felt like a knife. When had she formed these opinions of me? When had my sacrifices become something to ridicule? That dead-end job paid for your braces, your dance lessons, your SAT prep courses, I said, my voice rising. It put food on our table and clothes on your back. And it kept us firmly middle class when we could have been so much more. She checked her watch. I have a meeting with the contractor in 20 minutes. The apartment keys are in the envelope, along with the address. With that, she turned and walked back into the house, my house, leaving me sitting alone on the porch steps. I spent that night in a motel, too numb to even look at the apartment she'd arranged. I kept hoping my phone would ring, that she'd call to say it was all a mistake, a misunderstanding. It never hung. The next morning, I drove to my office in the same clothes I'd worn the day before. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How do you tell people your only child has thrown you away like yesterday's garbage? Robert, you look terrible, my boss Sandra said, closing my office door. What's happened? I broke down then, the full weight of Maria's betrayal finally hitting me. Between sobs, I managed to explain about my father's will and Maria's eviction notice. Sandra's face went from concern to outrage. She can't do that. Can she? Apparently she can, I said, wiping my eyes with a tissue. The house was part of the inheritance. Legally, it's hers now. But morally, ethically, you're her father. I just shook my head, too exhausted to even contemplate the moral dimensions of my daughter's actions. You need a lawyer, Sandra said firmly. This doesn't sound right. Script part separator ===. Sandra was right. I needed legal help, but the thought of taking my own daughter to court made me physically ill. Still, I had to understand my options. I called my old friend Estevão Mendes. We'd been college roommates, and he'd gone on to become a respected estate attorney. He agreed to meet me for lunch that same day. This is highly unusual, Robert, Estevão said after I'd explained the situation. Your father's will bypassing you is one thing, disappointing but legal. But something about your daughter's sudden eviction feels orchestrated. What do you mean? Think about it. The timing is too perfect. The moving truck was already there when you got home? The eviction notice ready? This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. His words sent a chill through me. You think she planned this? Or someone planned it for her? Estevao tapped his fingers against his coffee cup. You said your father connected her with financial advisors? I'd like to know who they are. For the first time since the eviction, I felt a flicker of hope. Not that my daughter would change her mind, but that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't entirely responsible for this cruelty. Can you help me? I asked. I'll look into the will fast. Sometimes there are conditions or codicils that executors conveniently forget to mention. He leaned forward. Andy Robert, don't move orphans out yet. Don't sign anything. Don't accept that apartment. But the eviction. Trust me. That's exactly what they want you to do. Establish that you've accepted the situation. Stay in a hotel if you must, but don't step foot in that apartment. I nodded, clinging to his advice like a drowning man to a life raft. One more thing, Estevao said, his expression grave. Don't confront Maria yet. If someone is manipulating her, tipping them off could make things worse. We need to gather information first. Script part separator ===. That night, I parked my car a block from our house, her house now, and watched the windows. At 8:30, headlights swept up the driveway. A sleek black Mercedes I didn't recognize pulled in. A man in an expensive suit emerged, carrying a briefcase. Through my binoculars, I could see Maria greeting him at the door. She'd changed into a cocktail dress I'd never seen before. They talked in the foyer, then disappeared deeper into the house. 20 minutes later, another car arrived. Then another. By 9:30, there were 6 vehicles parked outside my former home, including one with government plates. What kind of financial advisors hold meetings at night? In cocktail attire? I took photos with my phone and sent them to Estevao. Get license plate numbers if you can, he texted back. But don't get caught. I was about to move closer when my phone rang. The screen showed work, Sandra. Robert, she said when I answered, her voice strained. I'm so sorry to do this, but I've just received a call from HR. There's been a complaint filed against you. A complaint? By whom? She hesitated. Maria called the ethics hotline today. She said you've been misappropriating company funds for personal expenses. They're launching an investigation tomorrow. My blood ran cold. That's absurd. I've never. I know, Robert. I told them it was ridiculous. But they have to follow protocol. You're being placed on administrative leave until the investigation concludes. First my home, now my job? The coordinated attack was becoming clear. This isn't a coincidence, Sandra. Someone's trying to destroy me. That's what I thought too. She lowered her voice. Be careful, Robert. Whatever's happening, it's bigger than just a family dispute. As I hung up, the front door of my house opened. The group was leaving. I slid down in my seat as cars began pulling out of the driveway. The last to leave was the man in the expensive suit. As he walked to his car, Maria followed him outside. In the glow of the porch light, I watched in shock as she embraced him, their kiss lingering far too long for a business relationship. Who was this man? And what hold did he have over my daughter? Script part separator The next morning, I went to see Estevao with the photos. His office was in one of those old colonial buildings downtown, all dark wood and leather-bound books that made you feel like you were stepping back in time. I've identified some of these people, he said, spreading the license plate information on his desk. This one, he pointed to the Mercedes, belongs to Victor Mendonça. Should I know that name? You should. He was your father's attorney for the last 15 years. Estevao's face darkened. And now he's apparently representing Maria. My stomach twisted. The man who was kissing my daughter? The very same. He's got quite a reputation. Brilliant, ruthless, and not particularly ethical. There have been rumors about how he handles wealthy clients' estates. And now he's handling my father's estate. And my daughter. Estevao nodded grimly. I've contacted the probate court to request a copy of the full will. Something doesn't add up. Your father may have been disappointed in you, but to completely disinherit his only son? I thought about it. Dad was cold, not cruel, even at his worst. There's more, Estevao continued. I looked into the complaint at your company. The documentation submitted was surprisingly detailed, expense reports going back 3 years with questionable charges highlighted. That's impossible. I've never misused company funds. I believe you. But someone went to a lot of trouble to make it look like you did. He leaned forward. Robert, they're trying to isolate you completely. No home, no job, no income. The question is why. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number. Mr. Gallo, we need to meet. I worked for your father. What's happening to you isn't what he wanted. Café Miranda, 2 p.m. Come alone. I showed Estevao the message. Could be a trap, he warned. Or it could be the first real lead we have. I stood up. I have to go. Not alone, Estevao insisted. I'll be at the next table. Script part separator, Café Miranda was one of those trendy downtown spots with exposed brick and overly complicated coffee drinks. I arrived 15 minutes early, scanning the room for anyone who might be my mysterious contact. Estevao sat at a corner table, pretending to work on his laptop. At exactly 2 o'clock, a middle-aged woman in a neat pantsuit approached my table. Mr. Gallo. I'm Eleanor Vasquez. I was your father's personal assistant for the last decade. She sat down, her hands trembling slightly as she placed a manila folder on the table. What I'm about to tell you could cost me my job, possibly worse. I appreciate the risk you're taking, I said. But why help me? Eleanor's eyes clouded. Your father wasn't perfect, but he was a good man. What's happening now would horrify him. What exactly is happening? She glanced around nervously before continuing. 6 months before your father died, Victor Mendonça became more involved in your father's affairs. He began isolating him from other advisors, changing staff, even monitoring phone calls. My stomach tightened. And Maria? Victor introduced her to your father about a year ago. Said she'd reached out wanting to know her grandfather better. Eleanor's expression turned pained. Your father was so happy to connect with her. He started talking about changing his will. To leave everything to her. Eleanor shook her head. No, Mr. Gallo. To include her. The original plan was to split everything equally between you and Maria, with certain conditions. My heart pounded. What conditions? That's where things get complicated. She slid the folder toward me. This is a copy of a will your father signed 14 months ago. I kept it when Victor ordered all copies destroyed. I opened the folder with trembling hands. There it was, my father's signature on a document that left his estate divided equally between Maria and me, with a stipulation that we would jointly manage his charitable foundation. Victor convinced your father to create a new will 2 months before he died. By then, your father was heavily medicated. Some days he couldn't remember what year it was. Are you saying the current will might be invalid? Eleanor met my eyes directly. I'm saying your father wasn't of sound mind when he signed it. And Victor knew that. Script part separator, Just as Eleanor finished speaking, I noticed a man at the counter watching us. He whispered something into his phone, his eyes never leaving our table. Eleanor, I said quietly, I think we're being watched. She stiffened but didn't turn around. It's probably one of Victor's people. He has several on payroll, former security types who do his unofficial work. We should leave, I suggested, sliding the folder into my jacket. No, she said firmly. There's more you need to know. The financial advisors meeting with Maria? They're not advisors, they're investors. Victor's putting together some kind of development deal using your father's properties. What kind of development? Luxury condos. They're planning to demolish several historic buildings your father owned downtown, including the one housing his charitable foundation. The pieces were falling into place. And they need Maria's cooperation as the heir. Eleanor nodded. Victor's been grooming her, showing her a lifestyle she's never known. Expensive clothes, exclusive parties, powerful connections. And a romantic relationship, I added bitterly. Her eyes widened. You know about that. I saw them together. She shook her head sadly. It's all part of his manipulation. Once the properties are sold and developed, I doubt their romance will continue. My blood boiled at the thought of this man using my daughter. I need to tell Maria. She needs to know she's being used. She won't believe you, Eleanor warned. Not yet. Victor's convinced her you've been holding her back her entire life. That you're jealous of her success. That's absurd. Everything I've done has been for her. I know that. But right now, she's living in a bubble of wealth and excitement. Until that bubble bursts, she won't listen to reason. The man at the counter stood up, making a beeline for our table. He's coming over, I whispered. Eleanor quickly stood. I have to go. Don't try to contact me directly. It's not safe. If I have more information, I'll reach out through secure channels. Script part separator ===. She slipped away as the man approached, disappearing through the kitchen exit. May I join you? The man asked, sliding into Eleanor's vacated seat without waiting for an answer. I recognized him immediately from the photos in Maria's social media, Victor Mendonça. In person, he was even more intimidating, perfectly tailored suit, salt and pepper hair, and eyes that calculated your worth with every glance. Mr. Gallo, he said smoothly. We've never been formally introduced. I'm Victor Mendonça, your father's attorney. And my daughter's new boyfriend, I added coldly. He smiled, unfazed. Maria is a remarkable young woman. You should be proud of how quickly she's adapting to her new position. As what? Your puppet. His smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. I prefer to think of it as mentorship. Maria has tremendous potential your father recognized. My father was being manipulated when he changed his will. He wasn't of sound mind. Victor leaned forward. Careful, Mr. Gallo. Accusations of that nature could be considered defamatory. You wouldn't want to add legal troubles to your current difficulties. You mean the difficulties you've orchestrated? The eviction? The false complaint at my job? He spread his hands innocently. I'm merely helping Maria manage her inheritance. Any personal conflicts between you and your daughter are family matters. I felt Esteveo's presence before I saw him. He appeared at our table, hand extended toward Victor. Esteveo Mendez, he introduced himself. Mr. Gallo's attorney. I believe we have mutual acquaintances at the Bar Association. Victor's composure slipped for just a moment. Mendez. Yes, I know your reputation. Then you know I'm very thorough, Esteveo replied pleasantly. Especially when investigating potential cases of elder abuse, coercion, and fraudulent documentation. Script part separator ===. Victor's smile thinned to a knife edge. These are serious allegations with absolutely no foundation. We have the original will, I said, patting my jacket where Eleanor's folder rested. And a witness who saw my father's deteriorated state when you had him sign the new one. For a fraction of a second, I saw panic flash in Victor's eyes before his composure returned. Even if such a document exists, it would be inadmissible. Your father revoked all previous wills. Not if he wasn't competent to do so, Esteveo countered. And not if he was being unduly influenced. Victor stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced precision. This conversation is over. I suggest you both accept reality. Maria is the sole heir. The properties are hers to dispose of as she wishes. Including my daughter? I demanded, my voice rising. Is she just another asset to you? Maria makes her own choices, Victor said coldly. Perhaps she simply recognized an opportunity for something better than the mediocre life you provided. I lunged across the table, but Esteveo caught my arm. Several cafe patrons turned to stare. Victor straightened his already perfect tie. I'd reconsider any legal challenges if I were you. Maria's reputation would suffer if her father was convicted of embezzlement. Those charges at your workplace could escalate to criminal proceedings with one phone call. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering perspective. Walk away now, accept the apartment Maria generously provided, and everyone benefits. He placed a business card on the table. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable. As Victor strode away, Estevao squeezed my shoulder. We got what we needed, he whispered. He just confirmed he knows about the original will. But he's threatening to have me arrested. Let him try. We're not backing down, Robert. Not now. Script part separator, I called Maria daily after that confrontation, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I drove by the house twice more, only to find the driveway empty and the blinds drawn. It was as if my daughter had vanished from my life completely. You need to prepare yourself, Estevao told me a week later in his office. We're filing for an emergency injunction tomorrow to freeze your father's estate pending investigation. Once we do, Victor and Maria will come at us with everything they've got. I don't care about the money, I insisted. I just want my daughter back. The money is how we'll get her back, he explained patiently. It's Victor's leverage over her. Remove that, and his influence crumbles. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my motel door. 2 police officers stood outside. Robert Galo? One asked grimly. We have a warrant for your arrest. What charge? I managed to ask as they handcuffed me. Embezzlement and financial fraud. Your employer has filed formal charges. As they led me to the police car, I spotted a news van pulling into the parking lot. Someone had tipped them off. The arrest was just the beginning. By afternoon, my face was on every local news channel, described as a disgruntled father who had turned to crime after being cut out of his wealthy father's will. The jail cell was cold and smelled of despair. I sat on the metal bench, head in my hands, wondering how my life had imploded so completely in just 3 weeks. Galo. Visitor, the guard announced. I looked up, expecting Estevao. Instead, I saw Maria. She stood on the other side of the glass partition, looking nothing like the daughter I remembered. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, hairstyled professionally, she looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. But her eyes, those were still my little girl's eyes. And they were filled with confusion. Script part separator, I picked up the phone on my side of the partition. Maria, I said, my voice cracking. Thank you for coming. She sat stiffly, avoiding my eyes. This isn't a reconciliation visit, Dad. Victor thought it would be best if I offered you a deal in person. My heart sunk. A deal. Drop the injunction request. Sign papers acknowledging the validity of grandfather's will. In exchange, we drop the embezzlement charges. So Victor sent you to deliver his ultimatum. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. This isn't an ultimatum, it's a solution. Her voice wavered slightly. You're facing serious charges, Dad. 5 to 10 years if convicted. Il leaned forward. Maria, look at me. Really look at me. Do you honestly believe I'd steal from my company? After 35 years of honest work? She finally met my eyes, and I saw a flicker of doubt. Victor showed me the evidence himself, she said, but with less conviction. Fabricated evidence. Just like he fabricated the story about your grandfather wanting to cut me out completely. That's not true. Grandfather told me. What? What exactly did he tell you when he was barely lucid in his final months? Her confidence faltered. He said you never understood business. That you were content with mediocrity. And those sound like his exact words? Or do they sound like something Victor would say? Maria looked away, her perfectly manicured fingernails tapping nervously on the counter. Your grandfather wasn't perfect, Maria, but he loved us both. The will Victor showed you isn't the real one. You can't prove that. Actually, we can. His former assistant kept a copy of the original. Her eyes widened. Eleanor. You've spoken to Eleanor? The way she said the name told me everything. Maria knew her, trusted her. She's worried about you, Maria. We all are. She glanced over her shoulder nervously. Victor says Eleanor was fired for stealing. Another lie. She quit because she couldn't stand watching Victor manipulate your grandfather, and now you. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Dad, I don't know what to believe anymore. Everything happened so fast. The money, the opportunities Victor showed me. I pressed my hand against the glass. I know, sweetheart. That's how manipulation works. They isolate you, dazzle you, make you dependent on them. He's been so good to me, she whispered, but doubt crept into her voice.
Has he?
Or has he been good to the heir of $15 million? A tear slid down her cheek. The court hearing for your injunction is tomorrow.
I know.
Victor doesn't know I'm here. She wiped her eyes carefully. He thinks I'm at the spa. For the first time, hope flickered in my chest. Maria. I'll be there tomorrow, she interrupted. I need to hear both sides for myself. As she stood to leave, I called out, Maria, whatever happens, I love you. I always will. She paused, her back to me, shoulders tight. Then whispered so softly I almost missed it. I love you too, Dad. The next day in court, everything changed. Eleanor testified about my father's diminished capacity. Medical records were presented showing his cognitive decline. And then, in a moment that will forever be etched in my memory, Maria took the stand, not as Victor's ally, but as my daughter. She described Victor's manipulation, the lifestyle he'd dangled before her, the lies he'd told about me. With each word, she reclaimed herself from his influence. When the judge froze the estate pending full investigation, Victor's face contorted with rage. As they led him away to face charges of his own, Maria crossed the courtroom and fell into my arms, sobbing apologies I didn't need to hear. We still had healing to do, trust to rebuild. The house stood empty for months while we both lived elsewhere, neither ready to face those painful memories. But yesterday, Maria called. Dad, she said, let's go home, together. The garden needs replanting, and I found Mom's old recipe book. Sometimes life doesn't just give you lemons. Sometimes it takes everything away so you can recognize what truly matters when it returns.